I think I'm audible. Welcome back to our workshop. So before we begin, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere thanks to Fazil Ahmad for their excellent presentation on building stack and managing workstation using Docker. We are deeply grateful for their contribution to the workshop. Thank you so much, Fazil Ahmad. Well, guys, it's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker for the workshop, Mohammad Arshad, who is Head of Research and Development at BitLogics and TechHat's founder as well. He is an enthusiastic person who approaches software development and technology with the strategic mindset. Well, Mohammad Arshad will now be taking the stage to present the inside out of Docker and some advanced topic for our workshop. I would request you to please join me in giving Mohammad Arshad a welcome as we conclude our workshop. So, Arshad, would you please like to begin? Can you hear me? Um, Sorry, we can't hear you.
Should be fine now. You guys can't still hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, perfect. Okay. Uh, so far we have looked into how we can build images and how we can uh, build multiple images that called containers. Sorry, stacks. So now we have uh, environment. Let me reload the slides, guys. Sorry. Okay. So our agenda are going to be storage, networks, command line interface, and some sneak peek to topics that is advanced, like security and the use cases we can utilize Docker in it. So storage, it's a main topic that comes in a mind that if container going to stop or container going to destroy or container going to crash. So is it our data going to be safe or not? So or another thing come in mind that if we have multiple containers, how we can share data across the containers. So Docker give us multiple options, like we can use volumes, mounts, binds, and shades. So let me show you. This image tell us that if container need to be like mount some volume, like if you have a hard disk and you want to dedicate that to some particular container, so how you can do that? So you have to mount that hard disk on a mount point and that point to container. And if you have some volume is a like a virtual hard disk that creates on your PC, and that resides on your file system, and while residing on your file system can be shared across the multiple containers. And bind mount is something persistent mount. Still, it's a writable mount that can be on storage access services like storage area network, or it can be as network attached storage. So it can, you can say it can be externalized on somewhere, and we can use on multiple, you can say multiple daemons as well, like multiple servers as well. So these uh, persistent storage tell us that uh, how we can persist our data and how we can share across multiple containers. Uh, Let me share my screen and do some action on it so we can see. Okay. 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 In If I go to, let me know that my screen is visible to you guys, right? Anyone can? Yes, thank you. Okay, so here is the documentation on Docker documentation page. What it says: volumes are preferred mechanism for persisting data generated by and used by Docker containers, while mounts, it's another term. We will see structure and host machine. Volumes are easy to backup or migrate than bind mounts. Why? Volumes, like I said, it is uh, a file based storage, so you can easily copy or replicate it to multiple storages. So you have uh, attached that volume to any container, and that later on, if you deattach it, you can easily move it to, um, or easily you can take backups. You can manage volumes using Docker CLI command. We will see that later. Volume work on both Linux and Windows containers. Volumes can more safely shared among multiple containers. That's what I was telling about. Volume drivers let you store volumes on remote host. What is the drivers? Drivers, uh, drivers are the core component in our operating systems that communicate with the hardwares. So it's actually replicating that, like it's uh, it's not a physical disk, but it's replicate uh, that to container. It look like a physical, it's a virtual thing. So we need a driver that virtualize that behavior. So it can be on remote host, or could be a cloud provider. It can be encrypted content and add other functionality. So all depend on the driver, the implementation of driver, how driver implemented. If it's implemented on a cloud-based thing, if it's implemented a remote, like I was telling you about the SaaS storage area network, and SAN storage area network, and NAS network attached storage. So that is communicating through the network and replicating the volume on the networks. New volume can have their content pre-populated by a container. You can attach new volumes by pre-populated. Volume on Docker desktop have much higher performance than bind mounts for from Mac and Windows host. Okay, so what is volumes? Okay, there are few commands. Let's see what we can do here. We can copy and run it to terminal. Oh, sorry. So if we go to here, this is the volume doc. If you have Docker desktop, easy to just go here and put a name, my volume 1. Okay, it's created. Now we can see the data here. We didn't use, we didn't put anything here yet, and we didn't use in any container yet. So there is nothing here. What now we have to do is we can see, uh, we can attach this volume to some container. I'm going to see an image here, like okay. So mm, new container. Okay, now I'm going to attach that volume. Sorry. My volume. What I had created the name here. Okay, so I need this name. My hyphen volume 1. Okay. So now when I'm going to go here, it will should containers. Docker PS. Okay. So what happening here is this busy box doesn't have anything, so it's running and exiting because we didn't put anything here. It's a plain box. So what we can do, we can create on uh, Nginx. So that can be run. Nginx. See the spell. This one already exists. Okay, now because Nginx going to start the daemon of Nginx, the busy box was just exiting because that was doesn't have anything to execute and to continue with. Okay, so when we go to the volumes, it should we should be seeing. Okay, so it it is because we didn't give the exact name my volume. I have to delete again. So what is happening here? It's marking the app to mount on this volume. If we go there, copy to clipboard and the link, now we can see the dev test, and we can't see any file here because we didn't put anything here. Okay, so what can be done? We can go here and go to terminal and touch. Now go back to the volume and see. Okay, so now the file is here. If we shut down this container, this file should remain there. Okay, let's go to the that volume data. So it's persisting. So what the volume is doing, it let us to persist the storage on container. We can attach this to we can create another one, give the same thing, just change the name, dev test 2. Okay, so if we go there and go to the terminal and see the app ls, so hello html there. So what happened here, we have created another container uh, with nginx and with attaching the volume, and that file still there. If somehow I can change, I'm going to change the image, node latest. So tell me, is it the file going to be there? Anyone? Anyone? Yes. Only the problem is I have given the same name. I have to give the name again to separate, like we have dev test 2 already. So in the node, we have to put entry points. We are using the base image. In base image, there is nothing to execute. That's why it's closing, shutting down. But if we can sleep this container, we can see. Let me create something that can be executed for some time, like Ubuntu. It's gonna take some time. Okay, it's the problem with the base image. We have to execute that. Okay, let me do. I have to create a Docker file because the base image doesn't allow us to be executing. Okay, anyhow, let me create a folder on CD projects, uh, Docker Scratch, and mkdir volume test CD volume test code. Let's build an image Docker file from uh, node latest and a hello.js print hello world. The print sorry console.log. Okay, we have local image, Docker images. Local test. Okay, so we should have another file here, app.js. Uh, okay, we have to put sleep, 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 sleep. Sleep. Okay, now it will remain for that time. And if we go there, cd app ls hello html. Okay, so it doesn't matter which image we are using, the volume we are attaching it going to remain same. And if we go to volumes, we can see there is data, there is in use. So can anyone tell me that why there is no hello js there? Copy, we copied the dot into app, and when we go there in the volume, we don't see their app.js. Mm, hello.js. Can anyone tell me? Anyone? Okay, because we have discussed before that multi-stage, uh, these these are commands you being used for building the images, not running the images. And this command is runs when the Docker being executed. So it's only affected on a build time. When the image is built, then there is no more your hello.js exist. So you have to copy it in a second stage if you want to persist that. So that's why we unable to see that hello.js there. Okay, so it's a concept of multi-stage. Okay, so one thing we see in here that if uh, after after that 60 seconds, uh, the dev test for automatically exited because we put there 60-second delay. So that's how the volumes works. Let me know if anyone uh, have anything. I mean, they didn't get what is, or just let me give you another example. Let me see the Postgres. Okay, we have Postgres. So Alpine container volume. If I go in, you can see there is a Postgres data. Alpine. Okay, so uh, if I go in this container, this is already being created with the Postgres. So what is happening here? This container is mapping the var lib Postgres data. It is the container path, and it is the host path. So what is actually happening here? I- the Docker on macOS using the virtualization VM that's created for Docker host to maintain the all the volumes, all the core uh, kernel to share with other containers. So that is reside on a VM, and that VM has volumes path where it's creating a directory with the volume name, and that contains a data, and that is being mapped to containers path var lib postgres data, and that being used here. Alpine. Yes, this is one. So we can see all the data here. Is it difficult, or let me know? Are you guys getting what we are trying to do here? If you get that, we can move to further. Should I move to mounts or networks? Okay, perfect. Okay, next thing is for us networks. Okay, networks. Okay, like I told you guys before that um, in operating system we have drivers that communicate with the kernels uh, and that replicate your hardware. In Docker environments, we are creating virtualization with the hardwares as well. That's why we need drivers that communicate to kernel, and uh, OS thinks that it is a hardware we are communicating. It's a NIC, but it doesn't a NIC, it's a virtual hardware. So network drivers, we have different kind of drivers. One is a bridge that bridge your physical network to your container network. So it replicates. That's how you got the internet available on the bridge. Or if you like, if you are uh, your your traffic being being forwarding to your, if you want to forward your internet traffic your from the router, what you need to do, you need to use the bridge network. Then you can utilize your IP address, the public IP address on the container as well. So that's how you use. Bridge network are usually used when your application and standalone container that need to communicate. Okay. Mm, it's same how the networking bridge works, like and the host is a standalone container. Remove network connection between the container and Docker host and use the host networking directly to use host network. It's directly you can use host network. Overlay network connect multiple Docker daemon together, enable Swarm services. It's a Swarm. It's you can say lightweight Kubernetes. So if you want to communicate multiple daemons, you create an overlay. If you have um, okay, IPv network gives the total control over IP version 4 and 6 addressing. It's a VLAN driver. If you know about the VLANs are uh, virtual layers, that if you have multiple departments, like you have accounting, you have development, and you want to isolate traffic in different departments, so one and another can't see their traffic, so you create VLANs. So if you want to replicate that on container, you can do you can use IPVLAN. It's a totally, if you know the about the LAN routing and VLANs, you can understand this driver how it works. And it's also Mac VLAN. Before we are VLAN, which we are creating virtual LANs on based on IPs. On if we want to create virtual LAN on address MAC addresses, then we use this MAC LAN drivers. So it's totally purely on the networking. You can see that if you go this tutorial, it will help you to understand, like if we go. And by the way, in Docker desktop, we can't see any, I mean, we don't have any interface for networks, so we have to rely on the command line. So we can see the driver type here, like it's on Alpine Dev container, it's bridge, and for fast API, it's bridge, and host we created, it's a null driver. It's not being used anywhere. Okay, so if we want to see the where the network being used, we can use network name like Alpine container, and then inspect. Okay, inspect should be first. Okay, so this command give us the more detail about that the network being used with the enable IP version 4.6. We are not using that, and the labels we are using, these are labels that attach to this network, and okay, there is no container attached to this network yet. Okay, so this inspect command tell us that if it is attached to any containers, if what setting being created. So can anybody tell me that why and when we need networks? Anybody? For containers communication. Absolutely right. When you have not for images, we only use that for intercommunication between two or more containers. Okay, so let's see here. Network sandbox, container endpoint, one network, two network. We are bridging these